Nice, ready to go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Metro Outer Development Assessment Panel this afternoon. I will declare the meeting open at 2:02 p.m. and in doing so acknowledge we're hosting the meeting on traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. This meeting will be run in accordance with DAP Standing Orders 2025 and DAP Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. I'll introduce the members present. Myself, presiding member, Baltaz. Karen Hyde to my left as deputy presiding member, and to her left, Agatha Chabanik as specialist member. We have from the City of Swan, Councillor Morganton and Councillor Rod Henderson. Item 2, apologies, I have none listed. Item 3, meeting minutes. They're all on the DAP website for previous meetings. Part B of the agenda, I will ask panel members to acknowledge that we've considered all documentation contained within Part B of the agenda. Part B related information. Please confirm by show of hand, members. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Item 2, disclosures of interest. I have a disclosure of interest from Councillor Rod Henderson. Impartiality interest. Councillor Henderson, you participated in a prior council meeting on this site, I presume, advised. And yes, you were approved to sit and vote on the item. Councillors, was this particular application for you at a briefing or a council meeting?
No, not for this one. Not this is separate.
That's the only one I asked. Thank you. Thanks very much. Do any members wish to make any other declaration of interest at all? No, thank you. Okay, well, we'll move on to the item 3 on Part B of the agenda. It's for the proposed education establishment at 10 Asturian Drive, Henley Brook, and its amendment to previously approved condition number 4. We have 2 presenters at the meeting today on the item. We do have a number of written presentations that were submitted previously. First presenter is Daniela Merger from Urbanista Town Planning, and then Mr. Boardbar from Towns Transcore. Daniela, would you like to make your presentation? You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, Chair and panel members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon with respect to the minor amendment for the AIC campus at number 10 Asturian Drive in Henley Brook. So the subject site is located approximately 20 kilometres northwest of the Perth. It is bounded by Asturian Drive and Henley Street, and with vacant land to the east. East of the site, and which is reserved for the future Henley Brook Avenue extension. Okay, the panel, as the panel is aware, the campus has been comprehensively assessed through prior approvals. The original development approval was granted in December 2021, followed by minor amendments that were approved under delegated authority in January 2025 and again in July 2025. The current request is consistent with the established approval and focuses on operational capacity rather than any built form change. The proposal is to increase the maximum capacity of students from 1,000 to 1,510 students, resulting in an increase in staff from 80 to 105. Therefore, the proposal is to modify condition 4 so that at any one time, the final occupancy numbers are 1,510 students and 105 staff. Importantly, the application does not seek to alter the approved site layout or access locations or any of the built form. And we have confirmed with our building surveyors that the current size of the buildings has the ability to take that capacity of students. In terms of the key considerations in this application, first of all, a bushfire was important to look at. Given the land is in a bushfire-prone area, DFS were referred the application. They advised that the increase in students warrants ensuring that the emergency access arrangements remain fit for purpose. And in response to this, the city has recommended an additional condition requiring that the bushfire emergency evacuation management plan be updated prior to accommodating the additional students and staff. We support this approach as a proportionate and practical measure that strengthens the emergency access for the school. In regards to the acoustic management, we've also confirmed with our consultant that the original reporting was not based on the numbers. It was based upon the existing building. So in response to any acoustic issues, that was all addressed in the previous, in the original application. And of course, the main concern or the main issue we want to discuss today is the parking and access. So the pickup and drop-off operations and parking behaviour is probably the most important matter in the increasing number of students. Benham today will address most of the traffic and operational details. However, it is important to note 2 points. First of all, the city has recommended a condition requiring an access management plan to demonstrate that all drop-off and pick-up traffic can be accommodated within the site. We want to say that we've actually already had prepared a parking management plan, which we submitted to the city in November, and that was attached to our deputation request. So the city has, I guess, reviewed that document, and myself, Transcore, and the school, we actually met with the city last week to discuss that document. And as far as I'm aware and what I can tell is that the city is largely supportive of the management methods we put into that document. So I guess what I want to say is that the condition itself, it's not a new or not a condition requiring a new document. It would simply be a refinement to the document that we had already prepared and attached to our deputation. And secondly, yeah, okay, so that was it. So look, operationally, the management framework aligns with the campus design. There's multiple crossovers and separate movements, internal circulation to maintain efficient flow through designated pickup and drop-off areas. There'll be supervision during peak periods, clear communications and controls to the parents and to prevent informal stopping and on-street spillover, which from the written deputations provided, that appears to be an issue at this point. And look, the objective is to keep queues and parking demand on site rather than the surrounding streets. So that's what we are really trying to achieve here. In response to some of these objections or some of these submissions.
It's just about.
Is that okay?
Give that up.
Yeah, look, I'll just probably hand over to Benham now, but look, just wanted to say in conclusion, it's a well-defined and responsibly managed minor amendment. It supports the educational provision and the growth of the area. There's no changes to the built form, and we are wanting to work with the city continuously to ensure that the issues around parking and access can continue to be maintained or managed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure we're going to get some further information. Mr. Wardbar, if you'd like to make your presentation, once again, 3 minutes, but you can.
Thank you and good afternoon, panel members and officers. First of all, I wanted to use the opportunity thanking the city officers for working with us in order to progress this application and deal with the key issue, which is common with all schools, which is access parking matters. We are very pleased that we have received a recommendation for approval. And as mentioned by Daniela, specifically with regard to condition 1, we have already prepared a document. We've called it the parking management plan. The city's condition refers to it as an access management plan. That has already been presented to city. We have received, as mentioned by Daniela, some very positive and constructive feedback from city that we have already taken them on board, and we are going to incorporate them into the next version of document, which will be called access management plan in line with the condition. And we present that to the city and work with the city through whatever number of iterations that we need to do till we have a solution which is acceptable to all parties, a management plan which is acceptable to all parties. As panel members may be aware, AIC management are very keen to work with the local authority and community to address any such issues, and they are striving to be a good neighbor. And in light of that, significant time and effort has been put into making sure the impact on the surrounding road network and neighbors are minimal. The design of the school and the access and parking system is a reflection of that principle. And we are very confident that we can achieve a management plan which is satisfactory to the city. I don't have anything else to say, and thank you again for the opportunity, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bordbar. Panel members, we have 2 presentations. You can ask questions as you wish of the presenters. Councillor Congleton, your first cab off the rank.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Thanks.
All right. Question of Urbanista. In the information that you provided, I'd like to understand that the future primary school calculation for vehicle movements has been added into your scenario.
Which primary school was that, Councillor Congleton?
There is a primary school proposed for opposite this site.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
The access and crossover system which we are proposing is obviously reasonably offset from the other primary school, and therefore our access arrangements are not going to conflict with the access arrangement for the primary school. Of course, the overall traffic for the area has already been addressed in the structure plan for the area, and therefore the road network have been designed to cater for the ultimate development of the structure plan. So by default, yes, the traffic from the other primary school has already been considered.
So I just want confirmation that that 2,450 vehicle movements in year 2030 includes the new public school.
Yes, the minimum threshold for a local road is 3,000 vehicles per day, and Henley Street function and standard is above a local access road. So Henley Street can comfortably accommodate that traffic.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question of the presenters? Councillor Henderson.
So in regard to the traffic proposed for the area from the new primary school. Yes, I've seen those numbers as just discussed. However, the area has developed much more significantly than the original design. So we're seeing a lot of additional commuter traffic. So when we add the commuter traffic plus these two schools, it would seem to me as though we're going to have a problem. So can you address how you've dealt with the commuter traffic as well as the schools?
I'm not sure what you mean by commuter traffic, but if you're talking about the traffic which will come from outside this area, go through the area, and it's very difficult to quantify that traffic, because that, if you like, the through traffic or background traffic changes from time to time, depending on the developments and nature of the constructed road network. However, I'll go back again to my point earlier that this primary school, the new primary school to the south of Henley Street, was contemplated in the structure plan, and the structure plan would have catered for not only the structure plan traffic, but the estimated commuter traffic that you refer to. And one can only assume that the road network is either constructed or will be ultimately constructed as per the recommendation of the structure plan to cater for full development of the structure plan traffic plus other traffic as you suggest. So we have to only go by the planning process and assume that the work which has been done at the outset of the planning process has considered all those issues, and I'm certain that it has.
I'll also add to that, Ben, can you pass me that? So at the moment, Henley Street actually terminates just west of the school, which the plan is obviously, the ultimate plan and the structure plan is that there be a connection all the way to the train station. So that is causing traffic issues now. So again, it is hard to determine what that ultimate outcome would be. In addition, Henley Brook Avenue, I think it's called, that is under construction, and that is a north-south connection through the area, which then takes you down all the way to connects to Park Street to the south of the structure plan area. So that's under construction now. Once those roads are built and they're being used to their full capacity, then we may see for example, Asturian Drive, less traffic along there, because perhaps that traffic will then start to use Henley Brook Avenue. So it is difficult to be able to understand what the ultimate traffic outcome would be, and that's all modelled in the structure planning, and that's purely because roads are still under construction and they're not being used to their full capacity.
A further question, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I fully understand how the road network works, and certainly I understand that Henley Street is not constructed all the way through yet. Well, of course, it will be constructed all the way through. That's part of the overall plan for the area. And again, I raised the point about the additional traffic as a result of that road connecting straight through from Henley Brook Avenue is going to provide very significant traffic. We don't have a number for that at this point in time, and that added to the two schools is the area of conjecture. The point I'll make is that I think the original network was designed for one primary school and all the associated traffic, not a very significant school plus a primary school. So, but I think I've got your view. I just want to be clear that we understand that there's a conflict in what you're trying to provide us versus what I see. If you've got anything further to add to mitigate that, I'll be keen to hear it.
If I may, the area which is subject of the AIC school, a lot of these issues obviously were considered and addressed as part of the original development application for the school. So this application only entails an additional 500 students. That's the first thing. The second point being that as the school replaces the residential area, the traffic which would have generated from that residential area would also needs to be considered. So the net increase is not simply the additional AIC school traffic, but is the net increase, the difference between the residential land users traffic and the school traffic. And the standard of the road network, again, we got two structure plan areas. One, the structure plan to the south of boundary of it, just to the north of the primary school that you refer to the south of Henley Street, and that structure plan covered that primary school, and there is a structure plan obviously to the north there, which the area is largely developed. So that structure plan would have also catered for that road network. But Henley Street is a key east-west link, and because it connects to the station, it would have been designed and modeled to carry reasonable amount of traffic outside this area to provide connectivity to the street. So the issues that you are referring to would have been considered as part of this structure planning process and as part of the Henley Brooks station and its connectivity to Henley Street.
Thank you, Chairman.
You, other panel members? Yes, Member Hyde.
Thank you for your presentations. In the Responsible Authority report, we're given a reference to the Planning, Lands and Heritage response, and they questioned the veracity of the data that was used in your future traffic information, trip generation and traffic count data assumptions specifically referred to in the RAR. Could you provide me with a comment in response to the DPLH comments?
Yes. Well, the trip generation rates there are not 20 different trip generation rates for schools. There are one, and it's in WPC guidelines. And so we are surprised that the trip generation rate is questioned. That's 2 per student and 1 during the peak hour. That's the trip rate, which is used by industry for all new school. In terms of trip distribution, well, if someone disagrees with the trip distribution that we assume, it doesn't mean that we are wrong. It just means that there are a difference of opinion. And I'm not sure, because that comment hasn't been articulated in detail. I can't comment on actual impact of assuming a different trip distribution that the department think should have been used and what outcome would have had. We don't know that. So there's just that one-liner comment that they question the trip generation, which I'm surprised.
Did you follow up with them to get clarification on that? And what further information did they provide you with?
No, the question was, did you follow up, Mr. Woodbar?
Sorry, no, sorry.
Okay.
I beg your pardon. No, we didn't, again, based on the basis that trip generation is in WPC guidelines. We haven't invented the trip generation.
Could I actually add to that if that's okay? So when an RFI was presented to us, there was the comments from the DPLH, and which was, I guess, filtered and to us rather than like the direct comments. And what was presented to the applicant was that was in relation to the traffic count data. So I think in the original TIA, which was actually attached to the agenda, the traffic count data, Vlad, maybe was from an old report, but the city had recently done some traffic counts. So the amended TIA, which I attached as part of the deputations, actually provide the raw traffic count data, and then was the application was modelled based on that. So, and that information wasn't, I guess, presented back to the DPLH, but that was in response to the DPLH's comments.
Okay.
So
You're saying the application is modelled on revised traffic data, and yet we've got the original TIS, which is modelled associated with the application. So I'm confused with
we submitted a whole new TIA in January as part of the application, which for some reason wasn't attached to the agenda, and that's why I attached that in the deputation.
I'll follow up with the city on that point, though. Thank you. On page 5 of your application, of the applicant's application, and page 35 of our PDF agenda, it states no additional classrooms or staff required, and yet the application is for additional staff.
That could have been a typo. So I'm not sure. Yeah, because no, definitely there is additional.
I read the report. It's probably an error. It is definitely for an increase in students and staff as we read.
Okay. Okay. The increase is for 510 students and whatever, 85 from 110 staff. How can you be so certain that there is no need for additional accommodation, no additional ablution blocks, no additional open space, no additional car parking, no additional lunch breakout spaces? It's 50% increase on the current number. So it's not a small number. It's not actually a minor expansion. It's a significant expansion. So I am struggling to understand, you know, why you're just asking for approval for a number and there aren't a whole heap of other amendments to the master plan for the school that need to be made. Perhaps you could clarify.
And that was my exact first question to the school when they presented those numbers to us. And I said, well, first of all, from a building perspective, we need to almost work backwards and make sure that we can actually accommodate it. There's no point going through the planning approval without, you know, from a public building perspective, being able to actually accommodate those numbers. So the building consultant, he went through all that and undertook that assessment, and that was all confirmed that based on the existing built form and the existing size of the classrooms, that those numbers can be accommodated on site.
You don't have that information in your application, though. All that we've got in your application is a statement that there's no need for additional built form.
Look, at the end of that is I guess a building matter that for consideration in any event, and that assessment will need to be undertaken in order for a new certificate of occupancy to be granted. But ultimately that assessment has been done. And I mean, without giving those raw numbers or commentary from the building consultant, like I said, that's something that was my first comment to the school when those sorts of numbers were, you know, thrown around. So and then with respect to parking, the parking assessment has been done based on the new numbers, and it is compliant.
Okay, so right,
that's in the report because that is a planning consideration.
Okay, all right, I'll leave.
Sorry, if I may add just one quick point, the original parking and access system plan for the school was an over-design. An example of that is the number of parking staff allocated to the staff, for instance, which was more than the original staff. So AIC always anticipate these things. As panel members are aware, they often need to come and apply for additional increase to students. So they always anticipate that, and they always over-design their sites to cater for that anticipated increase. So when the time comes to come and apply, there is an assessment obviously gets done to ensure that the facilities are adequate. The school obviously don't want facilities which are inadequate, but certainly from the access, traffic and parking, the system accommodates the expansion.
And my last question, presiding member, is Henley Brook Avenue. What's the timeframe? What's your understanding of the timeframe for all of that?
It's under construction now, as far as I'm aware. I'm not sure the timing of completion.
Okay, I'll ask the CP as well. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, please. Thank you, presiding member. Look, I would like to ask about the access management plan that is expected to demonstrate sufficient on-site vehicle stacking capacity for peak arrivals. And my question is, how do you see those vehicles can be accommodated within that site? You could explain that.
Yes, it goes back. It's obviously documented in the traffic report and the management plan, and the management plan is a fluid document, and it needs to satisfy the city requirements. And once we reach that stage, obviously, like all management plan, it gets reviewed and fine-tuned as we practice what is actually happening at school. But the separation of the specific access points for staff, for different school components, separation of the parking areas, separation of the drop-off pickup points, those are very important key elements of that management plan to ensure that the additional traffic can be accommodated. Now, the additional traffic can be accommodated at the access point, and that's demonstrated. And both our objective and city's objectives are that if there are any, this isn't school like any other school, we know that unusual things do happen, that if there is a congestion for a particular reason, that congestion is actually on site rather than external, on the external road network. And that separation of access points assist all of that. The other point that I would like to make, which is a key point, and that is that as part of that over-design that I mentioned earlier, the school has allowed for a completely separate area to facilitate bus transport to the city. Now, at the moment, there is a transparent bus which comes to that area, but that facility allows for about 5 or 6 more buses to be able to accommodated in the future. And that's the elements of fluidity of the management plan, that you respond once you know exactly what's happening to the traffic. So there is those, if you like, contingency plans in there for a school to rely on to try to reduce the pressure of traffic by bringing on significantly more buses and more bus patronage to the school.
Well, thank you for that, but I would still like to maybe hear from your perspective, how many cars could be actually accommodated within the site? Because what we're considering here is over 500 students and additional staff coming every day, leaving every day, right? So how many cars we could expect that will be entering this site and, you know, possibly also queuing on those roads, where the residents are not happy about what's happening in the morning and in the afternoon, right? So I'm just, like, I was looking at your plans. I'm just wondering whether you have any sort of number in mind, how many cars could be accommodated within that site to avoid the traffic on those roads.
Sure. There are three elements to that point. One is the four elements. One is the staff parking, which is completely separate. And there are 90 staff bays proposed for 105 staff. And right next to the staff parking area, there is a transport bus that comes to the school and departs from the school. Then separate to that, there is the drop-off and pick-up facilities. Now, the drop-off and pick-up facilities are designed to keep moving as cars come in, either drop off and pick up, they exit, and another car comes back in. And normally, certainly with AIC, all AIC schools, the drop-off and pick-up facilities, school staff are there to ensure that vehicles move and don't park unnecessarily longer period of time within the drop-off pickup areas. And there are different drop-off pickup areas to reduce the risk of congestion in one consolidated area. Then, in addition to that, you have the general, if you like, visitor parking, which is over 100, and that allows for younger students that parents needs to park and walk those students. So all of those design and the modeling that has been done and documented in the document shows that there should not be any congestion at the entry and exit point. And one of the things that city have requested is that the gate be open a lot earlier, so that parents can come in and drop off and pick up and park in certain areas earlier rather than queuing at the gate. So it's very difficult to put exact numbers to each one of those, that how many students are going to use bus and how many students are going to be dropped off and pick up, and how many students, parents will actually come and park in the visitor parking area, because some of those parents may have more than one siblings. So they may drop off a high school student with a primary kid at the drop off and pick up, and the high school kid will walk there. So it's very difficult to know those numbers exactly, because those numbers change all the time. But all you can do with any school to try to design it in such a way to minimize that risk. And this separate parking area, adequate parking area, separate drop-off pick-up point, 4 separate access points, a separate access point for a school, a dedicated bus patronage area. All of those are elements that you elect to introduce into the design to minimize the risk of what you are referring to. But trying to put numbers on each one of those elements is virtually impossible.
Right, so we can't basically.
We can say how many numbers of car bays there are. At the moment, we're looking at about 150 car bays, plus another 90 for staff, 26 drop-off bays, then dedicated bays on Les Murdy Place. That's actually a dedicated road. So I guess ultimately, the ultimate outcome of that is that Les Murdy Place be allocated for buses. But at this point, there's not enough buses to accommodate that whole strip of road. So at the moment they are on street car bays, which are being used for parking. So I think when you kind of add all that up and compare it to the number of students, noting that there is multiple students within the one family, plus there's a lot of the staff also have students there as well. So, there's kind of that double up there. So it's not like there's 1,500, well, there would be 1,500 cars coming. And we've also we're looking at staggered time frames start times and finish times, especially for the younger, the kindies and the pre-primaries, who generally their parents would, park and come out, and, the time at school is a little bit longer than perhaps the older kids, as you might know. And yeah, so it's just all these kind of management methods we're trying to just obviously try and reduce, so that all those cars that are no doubt out on the street at the moment are able just to come into the site and just avoid those issues on the street and on the surrounding road network.
Right, thank you for that. I just want to add that actually we have many assumptions and we lack in numbers. So we've basically been asked to make our decision on many assumptions. So yeah, that's just my comment.
We'll discuss that. I have a couple of questions. Lesmurdy Place, you say that's for buses. Is it anticipated that they'll turn around at the end of that cul-de-sac?
Yes.
What size buses are you looking at? Because cul-de-sac, what's the dimensions of that cul-de-sac? Will it handle buses?
The cul-de-sac's already built and the Transperth bus already does that.
Does that? Okay. You mentioned the upgrade of Henley Brook Avenue. That doesn't connect to any of the sides of the school.
I think that the benefit.
So how can any vehicles from Henley Brook Avenue?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess
Because you'll still be relying on Henley Street and Asturian Drive, won't you?
Yeah.
Henley Brook Avenue.
I guess the only comment I have in terms of Henley Brook Avenue and the benefit it may have to the traffic is that it may reduce some of the traffic on Asturian Drive. Asturian currently is a north-south connector. Once Henley Brook Ave is constructed fully, then perhaps some of that traffic that ordinarily would have used Asturian Drive would then move on.
It's not modelled in any way, is it? That's just an assumption.
It's just an assumption, correct? Yes.
Who owns the land to the east of this site?
The school as well.
They're not intending to connect, because the staff parking abuts Henley Brook Avenue. There's no opportunity to bleed out into Henley Brook Avenue from the staff parking area?
I'm not sure. I can't comment on that, but it's going to.
Just looking at options too.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's quite a sort of highway type road. So
probably a dual carriageway, would it?
Yes, it would
Standard.
Again, it goes back to the point that I was making earlier. And as panel members would be aware, we've been in front of you recently on other AIC school seeking a slight change to the access arrangement, but based on the experience. So this site is no different. That once it's
there are problems there as well.
But there are problems at all schools, and the school problems are not the system, it's the parents and the way we behave. By the way, if I may, I just did a quick calculation on the drop-off and pick-up facilities, which may assist you in the question that you had. If we assume that each bay in the drop-off pick-up takes 5 minutes for a parents to pull in, drop off a kid and drop out, that just the drop off and pick up bays can accommodate 780 cars.
Okay.
That sort of gives you an idea of where it sits. So if we assume that every single student is one car, which never is, we are talking about maximum of 1,500. If we say, okay, it's probably half of that, and if you go by WPC guidelines for trip generation, is one per student that's in and out. So that's 2 trips, but 1 vehicle. So that just give you an idea that overall in an hour, that traffic can be accommodated on site, because just half of the maximum traffic can be accommodated by just the drop-off and pick-up bays.
Okay, I'll continue with my questions.
Excuse me.
The submissions talked about the gates being closed until 3 p.m. Now, when does school finish at this particular school? Probably staggered, because you've got pre-primary, primary and high school. Are they all finish at the same time?
Yes, at the moment they do finish at the same time at 3:30, I understand. And these Phil from the city made us aware that was an issue the other day at our meeting, and the school has committed to opening the gates at 2:30, so an hour before finish time. But we are in discussions with the school to say, look, perhaps we need to start trialling the primary kids or the pre-primary and kindy kids finishing a little bit earlier, just to kind of move that traffic along. So these are all sorts of trials that need to take place so that we can get this management plan right. And that's sort of what Benon was saying, in that it being a fluid document. So it's a little bit of trial and error. The school is definitely open to suggestions, and it's the city.
I think the residents have already given suggestions.
Yeah.
That is that driver behaviour, arriving, sitting in their cars on a 2-lane road, blocks 1 lane of traffic off, and the photos that we've got demonstrate that. Now, I did read somewhere that there's restrictions that have been placed, no standing. Who polices that?
Well, that's and I've actually said to the school as well in our meeting with Phil, and he can back me on that. I said, look, if the parents are doing that, that's effectively illegal, and the school needs to be, I guess, encouraging parents that they can't be doing that.
They can't stop them. The school can't stop parents parking on the road.
They can't stop them, but they need
They've got no power to do that. I'll ask Mr. Russell later what the council has been doing to, or the police or rangers to do that, because it clearly isn't happening at the moment. We wouldn't have this issue so much if it wasn't congested at morning and afternoon. So that's the reason I think that we're zeroing in on this, and to say it's a minor increase in numbers. I have no problem that they've got enough parking bays, that they've got everything that, well, you're telling us that they've got all the facilities. Well, that'll be a occupation and health and safety thing for toilets and so forth. But it's the traffic in the roads that's causing the problem, and I'm not convinced that an extra 500, you're not going to convince the residents that an extra 500 is going to alleviate that, unless you can demonstrate that there's a strong compliance with that. And I'm not getting it from you at the moment. You're saying that it will be addressed.
If I may add to that, the enforcement of parking on a road, management of parking on a road that is controlled by the city, is responsibility of the city.
Sure.
So it comes down to the resources that city have with the ranges, etc. That how that enforcement can be made, and how infringement issues can be notices can be issued. Now, my understanding is that I don't know the exact timing of it, but the no standing measure implemented is relatively new, and it was in response of people parking on the road. Now, obviously, by opening the gates a half an hour earlier, it goes, I'm hoping, a long way to address that issue. But if that measure put in place and that issue still persists, then school and city need to sit together and work out that how deal with the enforcement. Mm-hmm. And if the city don't have the resources, for example, a private sector parking management company can step in and deal with that. So one way or another, if there are illegal activities occurring, that needs to be dealt with and that needs to be enforced.
Okay, just on student parking. Is student parking allowed on site? I mean, that's kids are sort of 16 and a half nowadays and got cars.
Well,
Is that allowed for in your calculations in some way, Benham?
Yeah, we allow for some level of students to drive, and Arkansas year 11, year 12 students. But again, the quantification of that is only an assumption, is different year to year. Some kids may give a lift to a couple of their friends, some kids may drive on their own. But there is an allowance for that in the calculations.
Okay. All right, I've got no further questions as a result of that. Were any other questions? No?
Not for the applicant, but for the
Okay. All right, Mr. Russell, you've been listening to the questions, presentations. Is there anything you'd like to mention first off, or would you just prefer to go straight to questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll say one thing. I'm never a fan of being told what I said in meetings. So with greatest respect to Ms. Merger, I wouldn't have characterised the nature of the city's response in the manner that she put it. The city met with the school representatives, Ms. Merger and Mr. Boardbar and his associate. That was myself and the manager of community safety, who deals with rangers parking infringements. We clearly expressed to the representatives a problem that has been existing with the traffic management, perhaps, or problematic lack maybe of effective traffic management of the school. So we suggested several things, and one of those obviously was in relation to the capacity to get cars queuing on the street into the site, and that revolves around the gate. So we said first up, it's not going to be sufficient to be having your gates locked until only half an hour, and you'll have most of the peak hour traffic queuing. So we indicated in relation to that also it's a large site, and through a combination of an effective management means of the school to try and utilise the queuing and dealing with the access demand within their site, waiting to drop off or pick up kids rather than on the street, and in a combination of the city's capacity to enforce where there's breaches of the no standing regulations, between the carrot and the stick, if you want me to use that characterisation, we might be able to address both the existing problem and a capacity to deal effectively with the proposed increase in student numbers and resultant traffic. So I wouldn't say that we were happy with the plan. That would not be correct. We accepted that they will need a plan that will need to provide far more detail and address far more issues than what was provided in the plan to date. And I think Mr. Boardbar completely acknowledged all of that, and you've heard him speak around that. So it is certainly not a document that we would say is good to go right now. Far from it, but it is the premise of an access management plan for this proposal ought to be able to come up with means to accommodate the traffic demand by the school, and a program also of the city taking any compliance action with respect to breaches of the no standing. So between those two is the only options we have in terms of managing both the existing situation, but certainly also any extra traffic generated if this application for an increase in school numbers is supported.
Thank you. I'll open up to panel members for questions of Mr. Russell. Yes, Member Hyde.
Thank you. Bill, just by way of a bit of background, obviously there's been a previous approval and a number of conditions associated with that. Are there any of those conditions associated with the original condition that the original application that still need to be cleared in associated with the school or pertinent to this intensification?
So if I understand the question is that whether the school is compliant with the conditions of the original JDAP approval? Yes, to my understanding, they've met all of those.
Okay, thank you. Is the city satisfied that there is no other development required, i.e. built form or expansion of the site in order to accommodate the extra 510 students and corresponding staff increases?
Well, I firstly, in relation to that, they haven't applied for any physical additional works through this amendment to the application. I have to accept and do accept what the comments both of Ms. Merger and Mr. Boardbar that says that the school has worked out the capacity of its existing constructed facilities to be able to accommodate the increase. If those facilities cannot, under building regulations and Building Act, accommodate the increase, then they might need to do additional physical works that may require a subsequent revert to an amendment to the physical works of the existing planning approval or a new one.
Okay, all right. The applicant appended a revised traffic impact statement with their submission. The traffic impact statement that we had associated with the responsible authority report, we understand from the questions and answers we've received, may be different in as much as the modelling or the data of the revised TIS takes account of more recent traffic counting. Should the RAR have included that revised TIS, or at the time of assessment was it only the original TIS that was relevant?
No, look, in the first instance, what appears here is that the traffic impact assessment that is referenced in the report, in the section in the RAR that talks about the traffic, is the most recent updated revised traffic impact assessment document, January 2026. What appears to have happened, and I apologise for that, is that my instructions with respect to the dispatch of the attachments in this RAR to the DAP Secretariat, the earlier original submitted TIA dated September the 2025 was included in the attachment. So I apologise for that. The wrong traffic impact assessment has been provided, but the report is based on the revised traffic impact assessment, which includes the most recent traffic count data.
Okay, thank you. And the applicant also, and I think I know the answer to this because I think you answered it originally, but the applicant also appended to their submission to us a parking management plan. Now, that I presume has been viewed by yourselves, but not necessarily assessed thoroughly, and those assessment comments have not found their way back to the applicant. So we have but a draft of that at the moment. Is that correct?
Not quite. I'll be very plain and clear for everyone. The document that was lodged is not acceptable to us at this point, not sufficient. Okay, that was the basis of the meeting that I arranged with the school, including Ms. Merger and Mr. Boardbar and his associate. And then I made it clear to them and that there's further information that needs to be provided in that. So in essence, if I was to characterise it, were we satisfied with it or not, I would say that we were not, if we wanted to be quite clear on it. So all of that was communicated in a basic form, because it wasn't a sit down and thrashing out the technical details. But certainly the school and Mr. Boardbar as you would expect, well accepted that, right, we can go away, we can have a further meeting and drill down in working out what needs to be done. And that can be a whole range of things that might include, we certainly indicated one of the fundamental things that needs to happen is that the capacity of traffic, parents coming to drop off or pick up their children need to be able to get into the site and not queue on the street. So one of the fundamentals with things we said, and this is certainly what the community probably would have suggested and through to the council, is the school has to open its gates far earlier than what it has been doing to date. It might be the school has to do more than just that. It might, and it was been alluded in some of the comments, it might be the school has got to stagger start and finish times for pupils and a range of other matters. All of that, the nitty-gritty, so to speak, of what would constitute a access management plan, details that need to be fleshed out in a technical way, and I've got no doubt that the applicants' traffic consultants are very clear what they need to be looking at. And that will be something that if this is approved, subsequently they'll come and meet with us and we will flesh out what is the optimal arrangement for an acceptable access management plan for this school.
Okay, and we're being asked to approve a number of students, a number of staff without the benefit of knowing what that revised parking management plan or access management plan should be. Are there other aspects of the operational management, Phil, that need to be addressed for the city to be satisfied? I don't think an operational management plan was part of the original approval. Are we all understanding what's required here, the same management document?
Through Mr. Chairman, I'm not a fan of technical terms in relation to these management plans. At the base, whether you call it an operational management plan or an access management plan or some other word, it basically boils down to the same thing: managing the access to the school. Now that is the efficient utilisation of internal space for movement, stopping, and departure. It also might have operational aspects where if the school can only accommodate a certain number of stationary vehicles waiting to drop off or pick up kids within a certain hour, then it may well be that it has to stagger the demand of traffic coming to the site to manage that. And so it might mean that they can't accommodate, for example, their traffic impact assessment talks about peak traffic movements at 833 vehicles in the hour. Now you can work that out. That's almost one. That's about. It's about something like 4 every 15 seconds, if my maths worked it out on the calculator. So it may well be that the school simply hasn't got enough capacity to hold that within the site, in which case that volume of peak hour traffic arriving has to be spread out, not over the peak hour, but over maybe a 2-hour period. And it might mean then that they've got to reduce the peak volumes by having staggered start and finish times. And I don't know, I wouldn't suggest that the applicants have shown their hands, but they probably have in looking at it, and certainly Mr. Boardbar and his team would probably know quite readily, looking at all of that, the capacity of the school to manage that. It might be that they actually have to look at operational means. So for our purposes, the access management plan is a combination which includes operational matters such as when the gates are open, and also when the start and finish times of the school to stagger the access demand.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that answer. Just one last question, and you may not have the answer to this, but just for context, there's been quite a lot of reference made to Henley Brook Drive and those additional network improvements. How relevant are those things to this particular application? Do we have any imminent time frame for those?
It's a public work, so public work and imminence don't go in the same sentence together, okay? Whether it's the local government or the state. Suffice to say that the traffic modelling for the Henley Brook structure plan area in total and the original traffic assessment for this school factored in its dispersion of traffic on the road network, the fact that you will ultimately have, as has been planned for a very, very, very long time, the extension of Henley Brook Avenue past this site and the opening up of an alternative additional means of accessing the school beyond what is currently occurring. So the takeaway from all of that is, whatever the problems are now in relation to traffic distribution on the two roads in question, they will inevitably be lessened by the opening up with the ultimate extension of Henley Brook Avenue and the completion of the road network.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Nothing more from me.
I just, in terms of staggered hours, Phil, that probably works. Have you experienced that in other schools in the locality?
I had the pleasure, Mr. Chairman, of driving out the other morning. If you want to talk about staggered hours, I don't come to work in peak period times, so I avoid sensibly the commuter logjam. But on the instance that I did, what I observed at the Chisholm Catholic College in Inglewood was probably very much akin, and I have a lot of sympathy for the residents in this location, are effectively multiple streets loaded up with cars of parents obsessed with driving their children and dropping them off individually to school. It is just, in a lot of ways, a basic feature of life in Perth and probably many other metropolitan cities in Australia, that we accept that the traffic network gets bottlenecked, log-jammed at peak school hours. So, I'm sure this panel has seen it many times before. There are many instances, but certainly we accept it is an inconvenience and it's annoyance, and it can be a safety issue for the community if the roads are not able to be functional. People then start to drive illegally, and that is a safety issue. So certainly we accept that it's a proposition where we need to get the best manageable outcome for this school. And make no mistake, if it means they've got to stagger their hours, then I intend for that to happen through this access management plan.
Would you agree that a staggered operation of a school such as this, which draws people from a huge catchment, larger catchment than a normal high school, would be problematic, given that a number of the parents would have younger siblings and older siblings in the car at the same time? If you start high school half an hour earlier, you've got your kids in the car for an extra half hour because they can't get they can't start their school day. So is that, do you see that as being a problem?
So I'm not quite sure I follow. A problem as to whether parents have to have their kids in their car for longer than ordinary.
Well, staggered hours may not work. That's what I'm saying in terms of this type of school with three streams, pre-primary, primary and high school. You don't normally get that in the one lump sum.
No, except that you may well be right, and I think the school has made it clear that they'll look at solutions that might work for them. But ultimately, in relation to that, and I don't know, that might be the case. I don't know the ins and outs of it. It could be, but all we're talking about at this point is what are some of the, on paper, options for managing the volume of traffic accessing the school. You could be right. It may be the case. It may not be. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. So unless there are others that have arisen from the questioning and answers that Mr. Russell has given us, we will move on to the item as presented to us in the report. In order to do that, I will need a mover and seconder. Do I have a mover?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we resolve to refuse.
to go through the RAR first.
We go through the order of business before we do that. I think that doesn't give any members opportunity to speak, so it's not in our standing orders. Thank you. Do I have a mover for the item? I'll move for the purpose of debating the item. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second, but only for the purpose of debate, presiding member.
Okay. Okay, as mover, I'll speak to the item. I have a lot of reservations about the operational aspects of the school. However, the application has been supported by detailed technical data that demonstrates that it's not in keeping with the planning framework for the site. It's clearly the school operation is already approved. This is seeking an extension. The issue of traffic is exacerbated by the current problems that they have. And I don't think the school has ultimately handled the traffic arriving and departing. I'm not sure that refusing it is a form of punishment for the school not addressing internal operations, but the school is there, and if there's a problem there now and the school is starting to address that, then during the course of addressing it, the application can be approved, and it's still subject to a satisfactory access and management plan. So in addition, the bushfire emergency evacuation plan has to be addressed, and that's another issue that we need to look at. So I'm supporting the application on the basis that the submission made to date demonstrate that there is sufficient capacity on the site, that the applicants need to, through a operation or a traffic access plan, demonstrate that the 500 additional students can be accommodated. So that covered on to the conditions that we've got before us. So I'm supporting the application.
Thank you. As seconder, I'll briefly speak to the motion. I have some difficulty with the information that has been provided to date, and the responses to the questions. It leaves me wanting more definition around the traffic management, around operational aspects which may work with the traffic management. This is a very large increase in student numbers, fairly moderate increase in staff numbers. That's less of an issue, obviously. But it is a quantum jump in terms of student numbers. And given the responses that we've had both from the applicant and from the city, which have elaborated on that situation, I would feel more comfortable in deferring this matter to allow for some of those access and operational management, bushfire emergency evacuation planning matters to be more detailed, to have them assessed by the city officers to a point where we still as decision makers have the opportunity to determine, but we have more information in front of us which alleviates some of the concerns that personally I have at the moment. I just don't feel that I've got that sufficient detail to make an informed decision. I I don't feel at this point this application should be refused. I believe that there could be sufficient evidence presented, given the right amount of time and dialogue between the city assessing officers and the applicant to convince me that this could be approved. But that's my position at the moment. So I don't necessarily feel able to support the approval and would foreshadow an alternative to defer.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak for or against the item? Councillor Henderson, end up first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Congdon effectively foreshadowed that he had a motion. Look, I don't support this application for multiple reasons. I don't believe the technical detail is even close to being adequate or correct, particularly around the amount of additional traffic in the network from a original structure plan, which has been significantly expanded for smaller lots and a lot more traffic. So that aspect hasn't been dealt with. But I want to cover another point. When this was mooted, I believe it was reported in the newspaper that 2,000 students would be accommodated on this site. And so we saw an application for 1,000, and we are taken for, well, I believe we were misled by this being referred to as a minor amendment. 10% might be minor, 50%, they've got to be joking. This is a significant expansion. And if another application comes in the future for another 500 to 2,000, that will be even more significant. But that's not before us now. The point I want to make is that the fact is that this school has not been a good neighbour. We have complaints of this sort of stuff for a significant amount of time. You can see cars all over the road there, and cars were literally driving on the wrong side of the road to get through the congestion. The fact is that the school hasn't been a good neighbour to make access available, and frankly, how can you operate a school with a gated arrangement that you've got all the parking bays there and they're empty? Absolutely crazy. But the thing is, if we get another 500 on top of the existing problems, the amount of flow to access the parking internally is going to be even more congested, and that concerns me significantly. In terms of fine tuning of the traffic management, well, that simply hasn't been demonstrated, as I said earlier. I don't believe spreading out the coming and going works. It may over a differential of perhaps a half an hour or something, but not over 3 cohorts. I think that would be quite something to be able to achieve, and couldn't be used as a reason for an approval. The issue is that this is the cart before the horse. That all of these matters should be fully, completely, and adequately resolved before it comes before another determination. At this point in time, I cannot possibly support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Congdon.
Thank you. My apologies if I offered to do something I shouldn't have done, Mr. Chair. I have the same concerns as been echoed by a number of panellists. I would like to have seen the access management plan as part of this application. And, Councillor Henderson said, the horse was bolted. We've got a horse in the corral that wants to get out, but we don't do anything about the corral it's in. So the vehicle movements that have been discussed and in the documents that have been provided, and certainly from the officer's recommendation, is that we're almost at capacity on the roads it sits currently. So it's all right to say, let's put up no standing signs. Most people ignore them. And it's impractical to have a third-party traffic officer to go there and start infringing people. Most people who face no standing signs circumnavigate the area. They just keep driving around and around and around and around so they can actually get in through the gated access to get in to pick up their kids. And I think there's been a discussion about whether you stagger hours at a school. I'm unaware of any school that staggered its hours, and we've got a number of congested sites, certainly where I live. So I really just want to reinforce that the access management plan, had that have been developed prior to this application, so we could all understand exactly what their intent was, it would be a lot easier to accept it. And I go along with everybody's comments, perhaps not yours, Mr. Chairman, that it's come up as a minor amendment. How can a 50% increase be minor? And I concur with Councillor Henderson. And the staff numbers are not a minor either. It's a 40% increase in staffing levels. Now, this is by no means minor. It's a major change to what there is currently there. And I would encourage those panel members, when you get the opportunity to drive to the site and actually have a look at the congestion that's there. You need to understand, not to tell you what to do, but there's a lot of operator contractors that live in the area, and they're driving out, and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30 to 3 o'clock, they're all going home. They're not working anymore. They've already done that bit at 6:30 in the morning. So you've got those, I call them the contractor movements. They're self-employed, driving around the joint, and they're caught up in this. They can't get through. And that's when all that illegal stuff happens, when they pull out on the wrong side of the road or do U-turns or whatever it may be. So I can't support it in its current form. I probably would support a deferral and let them come back with a access management plan after a time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. You wish to speak? No. Okay. As mover, I'll close debate and put it for a vote. All those in favour? I feel lonesome. All those against? The motion is lost. 4-1. Do I have an alternate motion?
Presiding member, I have an alternate motion to defer the matter. If you'd like, I could read out
Yes,
the notes.
please do so.
To defer the application, needs a reference number, for a period of up to 60 days to allow the Australian Islamic College to prepare an access and operational management plan that demonstrates the capacity to accommodate within the school site the additional students, all traffic and operational aspects associated with the drop-off and pick-up of school students. B, the City of Swan to assess the access and operational management plan and to provide this assessment to the DAP in an addendum to the RAR. C, the Australian Islamic College to update the approved bushfire emergency evacuation management plan. D, the City of Swan to assess the updated emergency evacuation plan on the advice from the Department of Fire and Emergency Services and to provide this assessment to the DAP in an addendum to the RAR.
Okay, just a query, do you think 60 days is sufficient?
Well, it could be up to 90.
Sorry to interrupt. Phil Russell has his hand up.
Yeah, Mr. Russell has his hand up. Do we?
Perhaps Mr. Russell has some advice on the time frame.
Mr. Chairman, you've actually preempted my concern, and I think everyone's alive to it. If you're going to have a deferral to request the applicant to prepare further information and have it assessed, which includes the referral to other parties such as DFES, you'll need 90 days.
Okay, thank you, Phil, for that. So I would amend my to 90 days, up to 90 days.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Congerton, thank you. Do you need to speak to that?
Only that I think we, the majority of us, are of the same mind that we need to see more detail associated with this, that it's too many assumptions at this point, not enough clarity and certainty, The outstanding matters as per the RAR are around the access, and that may incorporate some operational elements, and also the bushfire and emergency evacuation, given the sensitivity of the use. And I think that needs to be holistically put together, given the quantum change of student numbers and staff numbers, and be guided by the city officers as to what is adequate, so that we're not faced with a situation when we come back that we still lack that detail. We need sufficient to make a properly informed decision.
Thank you. Councillor Congerton has seconded. Do you wish to speak?
No more to add. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak to? No, well, yes, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Look, I'm not overly satisfied with a deferral. I think what we need to do is go back to the drawing board, and that's effectively what Councillor Congerton was originally proposing. I am very concerned that the major amendment of 500 extra students is only part of the long-term plan. My understanding, the long-term plan was 2,000 students. And so when the next bite of the cherry, the progressive bite of the cherry comes along, will these plans that are being proposed be adequate? Will they fulfill the requirements needed? Will our community be blocked out of their driveways? Just little things like the applicant talks about no parking signs. Well, not the no parking signs means you can stand. These are actually no standing signs, and they're being abused. And the applicant says that well, a private operator can go around and give them fines. It doesn't work like that. So I think there's a lot to be assessed for the city, because I believe, from what I can see, this is going to go through. But I still have significant concerns that the applicant has over-designed, under-designed, and overfilled the operation, and that it will, along with the private, with the public school, will have very significant impacts on the area. Henley Brook Avenue was talked about going south. Well, council has decided that Henley Brook Ave won't go past Park Street at this stage. So, you know, that's up in the air unless a minister comes along and says otherwise. But the road traffic network has currently significant problems.
Can you speak to the amendment, which is to defer, please? I think you're starting to debate other issues quite rightly in time. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. I am tending to ramble a little, but from an amendment perspective, it concerns me that all of the matters that we've discussed won't actually be completely dealt with, and that there are wider issues to cover. Thank you.
Thank you. Agatha, did you want to speak to? Well, I'll speak to the motion to defer. Whilst supporting the motion to approve, I will also support the motion to defer. I think that we're bound as planning authorities to consider what's before us, and bringing in supposition as what the proponents may do in future, perhaps what they come back with after this deferral may give us a guide if they start introducing capacities well above the 1,500 in their calculations, which I'm sure they won't. But I think that rather than refuse it, I think the issue is better left with deferral, given the amount of information that they have provided to date. I don't think it's going to be too difficult for the proponents to come up with the management plans that we've asked for. And I think that the school, yes, I think it should spend a bit more time becoming a good neighbour and demonstrating that they can handle their increased student numbers and staff numbers within their own site. So I'll support the deferral as well. Having said that, would you like to close debate on it?
Thank you, members, for your contribution to the debate. I don't think the deferral presupposes any outcome for future decision making. I think we are still open-minded. We're simply seeking more information to assist us with that decision, and I concur with the deputy presiding member. We have before us an amount of expansion, but we can't go further to look at what might happen in the future. We have to deal with the application before us. So I think we've given sufficient guidance to the applicant, who's obviously shown within the period since submission that they're keen to provide as much information as the city requires. And I'd like to see that process concluded so that we have a properly assessed application and supporting information before us when we next meet on this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll put the recommendation to defer by a show of hands. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, section 31, SAT recommendations. There are none. Part C, other business. Item 1, SAT applications, Supreme Court appeals. Within the DAP system, they are all listed on the current DAP website. Item 2, meeting closure at 3:33 p.m. I'll thank all panel members, presenters, and our hardworking support staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Close the meeting at 33. See you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.